Welcome to this lesson in commerce. We're going to take a look at Lusaka Stock Exchange. For those interested in tuitions, you can get in touch by using the WhatsApp line that is shown on the bottom right. We are also on Pathfinder, a Zambian app, which you can use to find tutors or teachers like me. Of course, they are offering different subjects, so you can look at maybe the subject that you want, then you check for a tutor that you think is best. Each tutor, of course, has got a sample video to see how they teach. Then, of course, the one that's going to impress you, you can choose. Okay, so the short for Lusaka Stock Exchange, it's LUSE, LUSE, Lusaka Stock Exchange. So what is Lusaka Stock Exchange? So Lusaka Stock Exchange was opened on 21st February in 1994 as a non-profit making organization. What is a non-profit making organization? This is an organization that does not aim to make profit. So the Lusaka Stock Exchange is an example of a stock exchange. Okay, in short, it's not the only stock exchange in the world. Okay, it is just an example of what is called a stock exchange. So the question is, what is a stock exchange? So a stock exchange, it's a market for shares and other financial securities. A market for shares and other financial securities. So we know what shares are. Previously, we have discussed about private limited companies, public limited companies, and how they raise capital by the sale of shares. Okay, those people come up with an idea of making a company. The founders, also called the promoters, they are going to raise capital by advertising shares. Okay, so those shares are the ones that, of course, are marketed at Lusaka Stock Exchange. Okay, there is also another term here, financial securities, or just securities. Most of the times they just say securities. So you need to push yourself to be comfortable with these terms. Okay, so securities are things like bonds. Okay, so like government bonds, for those who have heard heard about government bonds. For those who haven't, a government bond, it's some sort of a loan that the government gets from anyone. So you can buy, you can invest in a government bond. So by doing that, you simply give money to the government. Then of course you are guaranteed that after some period, that money is going to mature. It's going to have profit. So you're going to have more money. Okay, so that's a bond. So such things are called securities, and these securities are marketed at a stock exchange. So now we're going to take a look at functions of the stock exchange. Okay, so we're talking about all the stock exchanges, not just Lusaka Stock Exchange. We are talking about stock exchanges. What are their functions? So by the way, aren't you wondering what the word stock means? Okay, Lusaka Stock Exchange or stock exchange. What is stock? Okay, so stock is another word for shares. Okay, so stock exchange is more like shares exchange, a place where you exchange shares, or a market for shares. So stock is another word for shares. So let's look at the functions of the stock exchange. So the first is it provides a market where stocks, also called shares, can be sold or bought. Okay, it provides a market where stocks, also known as shares, can be sold or bought. So it provides a market where you can buy shares or you can sell shares. It enables companies to raise their capital required by offering shares for sale to the public. Remember, private limited company, public limited company, they raise their capital by, of course, offering these shares. So these companies, they advertise on they advertise using Lusaka Stock Exchange. Okay. Also, they compensate members of the public defrauded by dealers. So they compensate members of the public defrauded by dealers. So just like in any business, there are some crooks. Okay. So in case members of the public have invested in this company, then that company turns out to be a fraud, then the Osaka Stock Exchange, a stock exchange. We're not talking about Osaka Stock Exchange, we're talking about a stock exchange, any stock exchange. So the stock exchange, they are going to come in and compensate members who have been defrauded. Okay. So they also provide rules that protect investors against fraudulent act by some licensed members of the stock exchange. Okay, so since for them to make sure that people trust the companies that are listed on the stock exchange, there are rules. Okay, these rules are meant to make sure that there are no people who are lying. Okay, there are no people who are fraudsters. Okay, so the stock exchange, they make sure that these rules are there to protect people who are going to buy shares. Okay, that's the reason why, in case you have been crooked or you have been scammed, they are going to compensate you. They are the ones who created the rules. So in case someone who is a thief has managed to list a company there and steal money from you, they have to compensate you because they have failed to protect you. Okay, so this point and this point are linked. Okay, they enable the government to raise loan capital requirements to build schools, hospitals. Remember the example I gave of government bonds. So because of that, it's one way in which the government can raise loan capital requirement to build public facilities. Okay, they also publish prices at which shares are traded at the stock exchange. Okay, so the shares of different companies are advertised. So when you go, you want to see how much are the shares for example, Zambif. So you just go and check the prices for the shares. If you think it's not worth it, you go to another company and the likes. Okay, so they are responsible for publishing prices at which shares are traded. They also provide the exchange of second-hand securities. Remember what I mentioned, what securities are, okay? So they provide the exchange of second-hand securities. What are second-hand securities? Okay, let's use an example of second-hand shares. Okay, so you have decided to buy shares from Zambif. So after buying shares from Zambif, then there's someone who is willing to buy those shares maybe at a higher price. Okay, now you have the shares, so you can sell that person. Okay, so that person is not going to buy from the company, they are going to buy from you. So there are three people involved here. There is the company, so you buy shares from the company, right? So then later you decide to sell these shares to someone else. So those shares, they are second-hand shares. Okay, the third person who is buying those shares from you, they are buying second-hand shares, or should I say the second person? So let me say that again. There is a company, you buy shares. Okay, so if another person buys those shares you bought from you, okay, then they are buying second-hand shares. Okay, so it's possible to buy those second-hand securities. They give some indication to investors that a company quoted is reputable. Okay, so the companies that have been listed, they make sure that the investor, the person who wants to buy the shares, knows about the reputation of that company, so that they don't invest in the wrong company. They also establish prices for shares based on supply and demand. So if the company is, in the business of tomato, they'll check, is there too much tomato coming from the farms? Okay, and people are there many people who want tomato, or maybe there are less people want tomato, but there's too much tomato, mean that tomato should be cheap. Therefore, the company that makes tomato is not going to make profit, right? Because there's just too much tomato, and there are few people to buy tomato, so the price has to be cheap. Okay, so the company may not be making profit, and the shares that this company is going to to be selling are supposed, of course, to be cheap, so to put. Okay, so they establish prices for shares based on supply and demand. So supply and demand is just a concept in economics which talks about that the prices of goods depend on the amount of supply and the amount of demand. Supply is what comes from the manufacturer or the producer. Demand is the number of people who need that, in a simple way to put it, who need that item. Okay, like the example I gave for tomato. So they make sure that prices for shares are established based on supply and demand. They also prepare reports and data concerning all organizations on stock exchange and how they are trading. Okay, so all organizations on stock exchange, they make sure that they prepare reports. Okay, so that members of the public who are willing to buy shares, like you and me, can go through those reports and see how the company has been performing in the past. Then from there, they can make informed decisions and buy shares if, of course, they're impressed. Okay, so those were the functions of stock exchange. Okay, now we're going to pay attention to Lusaka Stock Exchange, not just any stock exchange, but Lusaka Stock Exchange. So we're going to look at reasons or purpose for the establishing of Lusaka Stock Exchange. Why was it established in 1994? So the first was to promote and encourage private sector enterprises and initiative. So by that time, most of the companies were government-owned companies. So there was need for private companies, okay, to thrive, okay, or to come up. So the Lusaka Stock Exchange was seen as a way in which there could be promotion and encouragement of private sector enterprises and initiatives. Okay, the other reason was to facilitate raising of capital by companies. It's difficult to start a company, on your own, or maybe if you group with people or find people who can trust you or who can trust the idea. Okay, so there are different factors that determines what is needed to have enough capital to raise or to start a company. Okay, so this was seen as a way of facilitating the raising of capital by companies. The other reason was oh, by the way, this point to facilitate raising of capital by companies is, of course, through the sale of shares for new companies. Okay, so the other reason is facilitate secondary trading of shares and other securities. Secondary trading, remember, selling second-hand shares and securities, okay? And other securities, even shares are securities. So facilitate secondary trading of shares and other securities. So yeah, maybe if I bought shares from a company, then I want to sell to you. How are you going to trust me? Okay, so but if we are selling through the Lusaka Stock Exchange, then you know that the shares that I have are legit. To help in the process of privatization of companies, privatization is, of course, selling of state-owned companies to private entities. So the Lusaka Stock Exchange, of course, it was there to help these government or state-owned companies to be sold to the private sector. There was also the other reason was to enable broad and wide share ownership, okay, instead of just a few people, maybe a family owning a business, they thought if a lot of people own these businesses, these companies, then the chances of them surviving are high. The other reason was to help in evaluation and pricing in investment. Okay, so you want to invest in a company. So how much should you put in? So the Lusaka Stock Exchange was established so as to help in guiding on what are the right prices. Okay, so it was one right prices. Let me just say that again. So when you want to invest in a company, okay, so you need guidance on how much you should put in. So the Lusaka Stock Exchange comes in also to help with that evaluation and pricing of the investment. Okay. The other reason was to develop and establish security exchange in Zambia. To develop and establish securities exchange in Zambia. So there was no exchange of securities in Zambia. So the Lusaka Stock Exchange was established so that it can make this possible. Okay, so those were the reasons to the establishment of the Lusaka Stock Exchange. Now, what are the functions of the Lusaka Stock Exchange? Okay, reasons to establishing, but now what are the functions? Note that we have looked at the functions of stock exchanges. So all those all those functions of stock exchanges are also functions of Lusaka Stock Exchange. But we're going to discuss a few that are specific for Lusaka Stock Exchange. Okay, so one of them is they provide a source of cheaper long-term capital for existing and new companies. Okay, which is just like any other stock exchange. They also encourage investment and the growth in industries and commerce in Zambia. Okay, they provide an opportunity for the Zambian people to share in the success of private enterprises and the privatized parastatal companies. Okay, so this gives an opportunity to ordinary people like you and me to also enjoy the success of Trade Kings, Zambif, Zambia Railways, okay, private and parastatal companies that were privatized. Okay. The Lusaka Stock Exchange also facilitates the privatization of the state-owned companies. Okay, so in 1990, when MMD came into power, this was a big activity. Lots of companies were sold to the private sector. So the Lusaka Stock Exchange helps with that. Even now, such things still happen. The recent one, as far as I can remember, was Zamtel and Zambia Railways, which were initially under government, then they were sold to private entities. But later, the government got them back. They also promote private sector. They also promote private sector's initiative and create a free market system. Okay, a free market system is a market system not controlled by the state or by the government. Okay. The Lusaka Stock Exchange also promote wealth creation through wide ownership of shares by Zambian citizens, okay, which was one of the reasons why it was established. It also provides an efficient and orderly it provides efficient and orderly in shares and other marketable securities. Okay, the English here it's not clean. I did not do my typing very well. Yeah, but it of course provide an efficient and orderly when it comes to shares and other marketable securities such as bonds. So yeah, so and other securities such as bonds. Now, we've talked about selling second-hand shares, so to put. So let's look into that. How does Lusaka Stock Exchange make it possible for secondary trading to happen? Okay, so first they allow the selling and buying of shares for profit. They allow the selling and buying of shares for profit. So what it means is, if you bought your shares maybe at 20 kwacha, you can sell them at 40 kwacha. It's allowed. Okay, if you bought them at 20 kwacha, you can sell them at 40 kwacha, so long as there's someone who's willing to buy them. They also enable people or companies to sell shares when the prices are high and buy the shares when they are low. So they, just like this point, which allows people to sell and buy shares for profit, they also allow you and I and companies as well to sell shares when the prices are high and buy shares when they are low. Think about it. So if this company is not doing well, its shares are trading at maybe 10 kwacha. So you buy this share, maybe you buy 4 shares, 10 kwacha, 10 kwacha, 10 kwacha. So 40 kwacha, you have 4 shares. Okay. Then later the company is doing well. Okay. Those shares which were trading at 10 kwacha, now they are trading at 100 kwacha. So you can sell them. Okay. So when the prices are high, you can sell, and you can buy when prices are low. So you can sell them, which means if therefore you're going to sell 400, so your profit is going to be 400 minus 40 kwacha, which is 360 kwacha. Okay, so this makes it exciting. Also, they permit the buying in newly formed companies of shares at normal values and resell them when the price is high. So when a company is formed, since it hasn't proved that it can make money, so the shares may be low. So they allow they allow those shares to be bought. Then when the company is doing well, the shares are going to be high, then you can sell. So the concept is the same, making profit. So the concept is the same, making profit. So now let's look at the listed companies on Lusaka Stock Exchange. Okay, so these are companies which are admitted to the financial list of Lusaka Stock Exchange. Okay, they are controlled by the Securities and Exchange Commission and Lusaka Stock Exchange regulations. Okay, so they are companies which are admitted to the financial list, and they have got some control measures. Okay, which are the Securities Exchange Commission and Lusaka Stock Exchange regulations. So they're just 2 regulations: the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, and Lusaka Stock Exchange regulations. So these are the two the 2 entities or a set of regulations that control these companies. Okay. Their shares are available to the general public through Lusaka Stock Exchange. So their shares are available to the general public through Lusaka Stock Exchange. So once the company is listed there, then its shares are available to the public through Lusaka Stock Exchange. Shares in these companies are freely transferable. Okay, what does it mean? It means once you stick to these rules, you can do whatever you want. You can sell to whomever you want. Okay, so that's what it means, freely transferable. You can transfer them from being your shares to being someone else's shares. Such companies must operate in transparent manner. What it means is there's no hiding information or giving false information. They have to be open, they have to be transparent. Okay, because there's a lot at stake. People invest in these companies, they must be assured that this company is reputable. Okay, so such companies must operate in transparent manner. They should show good corporate governance. So even the way that company is being governed, it should be very good. Okay. They must treat all shareholders equally. Okay, so all the shareholders must be treated equally. There's nothing like, oh, that one is my father. No. So now we look at advantages of shareholders in listed companies. So what are some of the advantages of shareholders in these listed companies? First, the listing improves the liquidity of shares. Liquidity of shares means how easily shares can be transferred from one shareholder to another. Okay, the fact that you can sell a share that you bought as a second hand to someone, okay, that shows that these shares can be bought and sold, okay, frequently. So it's easy for these shares to be sold or bought. That's what it means by liquidity of shares. Okay. So once a company is listed, it improves the liquidity of their shares. Shareholders benefit from several tax exemptions. Okay. So these shareholders, there's some tax that they don't pay, such as capital gain tax. They don't have to pay capital gain tax. Also, companies' income tax is reduced. There is also no property transfer tax. So once a property is transferred from one shareholder to another or from one individual to another, there is no property transfer tax. But if you're operating outside the Lusaka Stock Exchange, you have to pay property transfer tax. So again, when a company is listed on Lusaka Stock Exchange, its image improves, okay, and is enhanced. What is a company's image? A company's image is what people think about that company, okay, what the general public think about that company. When you hear a word like Zesco, you have a certain image about the company, right? When you hear a word like Zambif, you have a certain image about that company. So for people who believes in investing, if they see the company is listed on stock exchange, they will believe that this company is a very good company. Now we're going to take a look at pairs of the Lusaka Stock Exchange. So these are different people who do certain roles at Lusaka Stock Exchange. Okay, the first are called stockbrokers. So who are stockbrokers? So these act as an agent. You know who an agent is. When you're looking for a house, there's an agent who works as a middleman between you and the one of the house, right? So the stockbrokers act as agents. Okay, they buy and sell shares on behalf of the general public. Okay, so if a company has some shares on sale, they can buy. Okay, especially when they are favorable, the price is good, they can buy. Okay, then of course they're buying so that later those shares can be sold to the general public. Okay, by they also participate in endeavoring to obtain the best possible prices for their clients. So they make sure that they just don't buy any share, they make sure that it should be the best price. Okay, so that's how it is. Okay, so they are paid by commission. So we say remunerated. Okay, so this word means being paid. Okay, so by a commission, so they receive a commission, just like agents. When you're looking for a house, you give them a commission, so no difference. They also advise buyers and sellers on a particular type of shares to buy or sell. Okay, they know the market, they know what is happening and what's not, so they can advise, sell this or buy this. They take care of all the details required to complete the process of buying and selling shares at the stock exchange. So even if you're a newbie, you don't know how to go about it, they are going to guide you. Okay, they compare prices in the market and will then buy or sell according to their client's instructions, then prepare a contract note. Okay, so they'll compare prices, then of course they are going to give advice. Then after that, when they buy or sell according to the client, what the client wants, then they'll prepare what is called a contract note. Okay, so now we look at the second type of player at the Lusaka Stock Exchange, called the dealer. Who is a dealer? So dealers buy and sell shares and stocks on behalf. So they buy and sell shares and stocks on their own behalf. Okay, they don't buy or sell on behalf of someone else. Of course, I did mention that shares and stocks are the same. Yes, they are. Yeah, those stock, it's more general. Okay, we can say this company is selling or buying stocks. It's like shares are smaller units of stocks. Okay, so they are the same things. It depends on just the usage. So don't get confused what shares or stocks are. Okay, you can regard them to be near the same thing. Okay, so these dealers, they buy and sell shares and stocks on their own behalf, not on behalf of anyone else. Okay, they deal with only stockbrokers with one intention, and that is to make profit. So they deal only with stockbrokers with a view of making profit. They may specialize in a certain type of shares or securities, e.g., dealing in mining shares. Okay, so maybe they understand how the mines work, so they will just focus on that. They also prepare documentation, e.g., contract note when a deal to buy or sell share is concluded. So just like the stockbrokers, they also prepare such documentations like a contract note when they manage to sell or when they manage to buy. Finally, we look at the last part, which is the buying and selling of shares at the Lusaka Stock Exchange. So members of the public are not allowed to deal directly with the Lusaka Stock Exchange. Hence, they should contact a licensed stockbroker who is a member of the stock exchange. So members of the public, you and me, we can't just go direct to buy. We have to use the middleman, the agent, the stockbroker. The first step is to contact one of the stockbrokers, and he or she will advise you on a particular share to buy or sell and which company. Okay, so once you contact the stockbroker, you tell them how much you have, then they can advise which company to buy or sell shares. When buying or selling shares, you should open an account with the stockbroker. Okay, so of course, before you can actually buy, you need to open an account with this stockbroker. Once an account is opened, a person may buy or sell shares through a broker with whom an account has opened. So in short, you are going to be buying or selling shares through the account of that broker. And Lusaka Stock Exchange, they are going to know that you are using that broker. If a person is selling shares, the broker would demand that a client's share certificate be deposited in the account opened with him before he could place an order to sell them. Okay, so for example, you're selling shares, right? Then the broker will make sure that a client's share certificate is deposited in the account, okay, in the broker's account, okay, before a sale can be made. Then after that, 3 days after the sale of shares, the shares are transferred to the account of a new buyer, and then the broker must receive money for shares sold so that he's able to pay his clients whose shares were sold. Okay. Then, of course, if a person is buying shares, he or she must pay for money for shares to the broker in advance so that the broker is in position to pay for shares 3 days after the shares have been bought. Okay, so money has to be paid in advance so that the broker is able to pay the seller. Okay. When the buyer of the shares asks for a share certificate with the shares registered in him or her name, the Lusaka Stock Exchange charges a fee for arranging a certificate to be issued. So the certificate is not even for free. You have to pay something. Okay, so these are the processes that are involved in buying and selling shares at the Lusaka Stock Exchange. So this marks the end of this topic, Lusaka Stock Exchange. See you in the next lesson.